Thank you for coming today to help us celebrate the first anniversary of the Inflation Reduction Act. And we have several speakers here with us today that will enumerate some of the benefits that we expect to be coming down from the Inflation Reduction Act and how we can help support those. So without further ado, I would like to ask Ellen Allen, who is the Director of West Virginia's Affordable Healthcare, to talk about some of the healthcare.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. President Biden and the congressional Democrats have fought tirelessly to pass this historic healthcare investment that's included in the Inflation Reduction Act. I don't think these investments get talked about enough. These provisions will strengthen the healthcare system in this country. They're really, truly historic. Healthcare really lies at the heart of the Inflation Reduction Act. It gives Medicare the power to negotiate lower drug prices. I think that's one of the most significant pieces of the legislation. And there are over 319,000 West Virginians who will benefit from Medicare being empowered to negotiate these prices. And there were over 8,000 people, actually about 8,350, Medicare Part D, who had out-of-pocket drug expenses exceeding $2,000. Those will now be capped. So it's a big win for West Virginia. By 2030, there will be 80 prescription drugs that Medicare will have price negotiations on. That's big. That's historic. Almost 30,000 West Virginians will see insulin copays capped at $35 a month. That's big as well. And almost 22,000 West Virginians will save monthly health insurance premiums. These are historic things. We know healthy communities have healthy economies, and we know this can help get people back into the labor force, help them stay into the labor force. Again, the Inflation Reduction Act lowers health insurance premiums, caps the amount of money families pay for health insurance. And here's a piece that I think is really, really significant. It lowers it so much that a family of four, a middle-class family of four, can see a reduction in yearly premiums of over $18,000. Now that is meaningful. That is really meaningful. And West Virginians need to know about this. We need to talk about this and how it impacts our families on the ground. So other areas I think are very important. It addresses healthcare equity by expanding coverage to communities of color. It eliminates premiums for low-wage workers, which is a big, big win. And it cuts costs for rural America. And it decreases that divide between rural and urban communities. So we're grateful for the Inflation Reduction Act, and we see healthcare lying at the heart of this piece of legislation.
Thank you very much, Ellen. Next up, I'd like to ask Josh Sword with AFL-CIO to talk about some of the jobs, economic impacts of this act.
Thank you, Gary. It is a really neat opportunity to be here to talk about some of the provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act. You know, they're getting lost. There are lots of opinions about what the ARA does and doesn't do. That's just simply not true. So we'd like to try to clear the air a little bit here. I'm going to hit on a couple areas. Inside the Inflation Reduction Act, there is $10 billion in incentives to support the coal and gas industry, believe it or not. And it's designed to help existing coal and natural gas plants and encourage manufacturing. There's also $238 billion in debt reduction, something that clearly many, many people don't know or understand. The act will permanently extend the Black Lung Disability Fund, a critical component to the care and well-being of coal miners throughout West Virginia and Appalachia and other mining states. It will lower prescription drug costs, as we just heard, capping insulin costs at $35 a month for seniors. Let's talk about taxes for a second. Taxes automatically come out of workers' paychecks, and tax compliance among working families is very high. The majority of uncollected taxes that are owed come from the wealthiest Americans who have complicated ways to dodge them and the means to do so. For years, the IRS has not had the resources to enforce collection on wealthy tax dodgers. The richest 1% alone owes about 36% of all unpaid taxes. Of the roughly $600 billion in tax evasion, 64% is done by the top 10% of earners. This law will mean an additional $203 billion in previously uncollected tax revenue. Thanks to the IRA, working families will no longer pay a higher tax rate than giant corporations raking in $1 billion or more in profit each year. The IRA is also a jobs bill. Analysis by the Labor Energy Partnership, a shared commitment of the AFL-CIO and Energy Futures Initiative, found the bill will add nearly 1.5 million jobs and increase per capita personal income by nearly $4,000. In closing, this is a momentous step forward, but work remains. The AFL-CIO will continue organizing to update outdated labor laws through the passage of the Protect the Right to Organize, also known as the PRO Act, pushing to lower costs for working families, especially women and workers of color, and investing in public education to help the next generation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh, with a message from organized labor here in West Virginia. And something else that the Inflation Reduction Act does is it gives opportunities for local governments and municipalities to engage in items that they don't normally get into. So I'm going to have Zach Shrewsbury with West Virginia New Jobs Coalition and Common Defense talk about some of the work they've been doing.
Thanks, Gary. My name is Zach Shrewsbury. I'm a native West Virginia organizer and a veteran. I'm here representing Common Defense, who's a member of the West Virginia New Jobs Coalition. Today we're here to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, otherwise known as the IRA or IRA. The Inflation Reduction Act is historically a large piece of legislation. It's included billions of dollars for renewable energy and technology. We here in West Virginia stand on a golden opportunity in our home to make our state and West Virginians even more resilient, independent, and prosperous. With the Inflation Reduction Act, local leaders can change your town's path for the better. Do you have abandoned buildings in your town that need to be torn down? There's grants for that to build a park. You want to weatherize a space? There's a grant for windows. You have stormwater flooding roads. We have grants for that. Is your community be affected by rising electric rates? The IRA has a grant for that as well. Solar panels on a roof to cut the insane electricity costs, EV stations to encourage tourism and travel through communities, parks with removable features for children to play in, where old dilapidated buildings stood. Future industry is here, so let's seize it in West Virginia. Members of coalitions and organizations have been traveling across the state from north to south, talking to our elected officials, and asking them to take advantage of the funding and the act for their communities. So talk to your representatives about taking action on this much needed opportunity. These actions not only increase the success of our towns, but also jobs for our people. Because remember, the worker comes before anything. A justified transition is the only way forward so we can protect West Virginians and get them into these jobs. Leading into renewable technologies will spur job and industry creation. Imagine the jobs available if we were to bring renewable manufacturing to West Virginia. West Virginia powered the nation before. Let's do it again. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Zach, for that encouraging words about availability of resources for local communities. And our last speaker is from the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I'd like to introduce Steve Crum.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon. As Gary said, I'm with the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. We're the largest electrical union in the world at over 800,000 members and retirees, and we're also one of the most diverse unions, not only in our membership, but also in the work classifications that we represent. We have people in construction, utility, manufacturing, broadcasting, telecom, railroad, and government. And that's why the bill is so appealing to us. You know, we are involved in the electrical industry or energy from construction to generation and the power plants to transmission and distribution through the wires, and then ultimately in the end is consumers as well. you know, the IRA is extremely important to us. When I hear IRA, I think about clean energy, I think about climate, I think about jobs, well, not just jobs, but actually careers, and I think about opportunities. You know, too often our construction workers, their jobs get discounted as temporary jobs, but, you know, our members, they make 40-year careers out of working themselves out of one job and into the next. And those jobs are, they provide family-sustaining wages and benefits. Some of the early results of the IRA here in West Virginia, the Berkshire Hathaway project in Jackson County, where we have precision cash parts, plus an 140 megawatt solar project and an additional 30 megawatts of battery storage there. There's a potential for 1,000 jobs right there on that one investment alone, thanks to the IRA. We have Form Energy up in Weirton, West Virginia. It's a battery plant. It's in the place of an old abandoned steel mill that's being revived. Jobs are going to be created there. Toyota is taking advantage of the IRA with electrification of some of their vehicles, and then Nucor Steel over in Mason County on the river. These are 4 huge wins for West Virginia that not only provide jobs for construction workers and our IBEW members, but long-term jobs and economic security there for the communities that they're in. Why is that important to us? All these jobs with the IRA money have labor provisions in it, and they are encouraged to use, if they get the money, they have to pay a prevailing wage, which is a union wage. And they also have to utilize apprenticeship for the projects. This is important to us because that allows us to expand our training opportunities, our apprenticeship programs, allows us to bring more people into the program, more diverse people into our programs. And it also allows us to backfill from our retirees leaving the trade. So, when I talk about opportunities and jobs and careers, if you're in school right now and you're looking for a job in the electrical industry, come see us. If you want to change careers and think maybe the electrical industry is someplace you want to go, come see us. If you have experience in the electrical industry but you're not in the IBEW and would like to be, come see us. We have local unions all over the state. We see tremendous opportunity and growth because of the IRA, and it's really exciting for me, my first year in 40 years, that I see this kind of opportunity that's going to be created and be sustained for quite a while. So thank you, Gary, for the opportunity to speak this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Steve, so much. And I realized that I never did introduce myself. I'm Gary Zuckett with West Virginia Citizen Action. And I just want to say a few words in just a little wrap up here. I think that West Virginia is one of the states really that stands to benefit the most from the Inflation Reduction Act. We have next to the highest percentage of seniors in the nation who desperately need cost controls on their medications. And our economy is in dire need of the IRA's incentives and the jobs that it's created to move us into the new energy economy that is fast becoming our nation's future. And it does all this and is paid for by making the billion-dollar corporations, the millionaires and the billionaires, pay their fair share of taxes. And so, in wrapping things up, there's a lot to celebrate here as we work to implement this long-term vision of the Inflation Reduction Act that's going to go into the next decade. But we also need to protect this from the greedy drug corporations and the Wall Street financiers and their allies in Congress, who already are trying to roll back some of these provisions to undo the good work that's been done in this thing. So we must work hard to push back on these lawsuits and other efforts in Congress to repeal the law, to stop implementation, and to chip away at the progress made. Then we can finally get the lower costs and the fair prices that we need to take care of our families and to move forward creating new jobs by addressing our burgeoning climate emergency. And thank you very much. Any questions from the press? You good? Okay.